Hey, well, hello to you, and thanks for tuning in to the AFTM Online. AFTM, of course, stands for the Austin Friends of Traditional Music, and we're here in Austin, Texas, where we celebrate all kinds of string music for sure. And the three folks that I have assembled here with me are members as I am, but they're a little bit more special because they were here at the founding of this organization. This year, marks the 50th anniversary of the AFTM being in existence, and all three of these people were right there when it started. Now we're at the home of Elizabeth Pittman. Thanks so much for hosting us today, Elizabeth. It's great
You're
to see
welcome.
you. And you, I think of as a fiddler, of course. And how did that instrument come into your life?
Well, I've always played music and played piano, and then heard a string band when I lived in California, Northern California, and realized that's what I really needed to do. That's what I had to do. And so I went out and bought a fiddle, and the rest is pitiful history.
Mm-hmm. And to my right is David Polacheck, who I've seen playing multiple instruments. David, how did string music come into your life?
Well, I was early on introduced to folk music by my father, who was a folk singer in the 30s and 40s and used to play songs for my brothers and me when we were little. And we had records and books around the house, but a classmate of mine influenced me into picking up the five-string banjo when I was about 15. And after I got a little bit going on that, I started attending a place called the Ash Grove, which was a coffee house in Southern California and the Los Angeles area. And there were a lot of traditional musicians that played there, including the New Lost City Ramblers. So I got introduced to the concept of the string band through that.
Yeah, well, the Ash Grove's a famous place. I sure wish I had attended when it was in its
Yeah,
heydays, but it sounds like you did.
It was my haunt. I loved
Uh-huh.
the place.
And to the right of David is Mr. Bernard Molberg. And Bernard, how did those banjos that I've seen you craft and play, how did that kind of music come into your life?
Well, for some reason, I felt I should learn how to play a banjo, and I can't even say why that might be, but I'm still playing one after many years. I started, I played a harmonica to take care of my little sister who was, I was 10 years old when she was born, and so I can play a harmonica of all things. But I got a chance to go and get some banjo lessons in a local mall. I was living just south of Houston. My dad worked at NASA, and we moved from Huntsville, Alabama, where I didn't ever see any live music, which is kind of ironic. But I'm sure there was some there, but I just didn't have that. Anyway, that was it. We got to. I learned to play the banjo. I pretty quickly was giving banjo lessons while I was still in high school, and I came to UT to make my parents happy. And I actually was an English major, and I had a chance to do a little bit of folkloric work as part of that within the year and a half to 2 years that I was going to UT. And so that was kind of how I got
Well, if we step
pre-Austin.
into the Wayback Machine and go back to 1974, a mere half century ago, there was some kind of an acoustic music scene in the Austin area, I guess, but a group of you got together and decided to do something special. And can you tell us a little bit about that, Elizabeth?
Well, it was actually David's suggestion, but we kind of wanted to know who was out there. By the fall of '74, we three knew each other, and the people we knew, there was a little group, but we didn't know who else was there. And so the idea was to put on an event and see who would come out of the woodwork. And we did that, and it worked, and they came out,
Mm-hmm.
and many more than we imagined,
Oh, great.
and some really talented people, different kinds of acoustic traditional musicians.
And David, can you tell us about that very first event that you put on?
Yes, I had just relocated to Austin from the San Francisco Bay Area, where I had experienced the Berkeley Old Time Fiddlers Convention. And that was so much fun, I suggested to my then partner, Maggie Cook, and to Dave Allen, who was another one of our circle, that we should try to organize something like that in Austin, which led to that first organizational meeting, I guess in the late summer of '74 at the house that Dave Allen was living at in Hyde Park on the corner of Duval and Park Boulevard. And at that first meeting, we decided to go ahead and start a nonprofit. We agreed upon the name of the organization. We passed the hat to take up a sort of a mini collection for the first treasury, and we started planning our first event, which was intended as a one-off just to see how many other traditional musicians were in the area.
And you had a contest, was that first event?
Yes,
right?
it was based on the Old Time Fiddler conventions, except we decided to make it as inclusive as we possibly could to draw as many different kinds of music as was out there. So we had fiddle, banjo, clawhammer and bluegrass style. We had guitar, dobro, mandolin, just everything that we could think of, harmonica even. And the idea was to give enough of an event for everybody to take part in, and try to make it as inclusive and well attended as we possibly could do.
Yeah. Were all three of you at the actual event?
Yes.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
sure were.
What do you remember, Bernard, about that fine event?
Well, my memory isn't all that flawless, but I do remember that there was a point where at this seminal meeting that we all gave $10 to fund thing, a little thing, and I remember that there were four of us that gave $10 each, and so I've over the years and decades have gone by, and I still haven't gotten my $10 back. I don't know what's up with that, but anyway, but it's all gone to good use, you know. So we're very, very proud to have been setting that up, and I'd been playing a little bit of music in the area here, but as Dave's telling us, you know, that to have the outreach for other folks, and you know, this Austin being a college town, well, you know, you'll meet all kinds of people.
Mm-hmm. And y'all have been involved with AFTM to one degree or another ever since. I can certainly attest to your attendance at our fine events. How would you say, briefly, the organization has evolved over the years from your initial situation?
Well, several things have happened over the years. Our first events, and there were several years worth of events, as David said, we're trying to include as many kinds of traditional music and musicians as possible. But there was kind of an Irish contingent. There was a bluegrass contingent, definitely an old-time string band contingent. And the Irish people kind of spun off to form their own organization because they wanted to have an all-Irish festival, which they did very successfully. And the bluegrass people eventually spun off to form the Central Texas Bluegrass Association. And there were dancers under our umbrella. It was an umbrella organization. And they eventually, they were, we think, in our organization only so that they could enjoy our insurance, our event insurance. And eventually they also spun off and formed their own organization. So we still have friends in all those overlapping circles, and see people regularly. But those are some fairly major things that have happened over the years.
And to at least to some extent, old time music is the current focus of the organization, though it's open to a lot more than that. And David, I know you're pretty proficient in the old time area. So you're pretty comfortable with that. And you lead a jam how often is it?
Well, I don't lead it, I just take part in it. It's every Tuesday night at Genuine Joe Coffee House. And just a bunch of people get together, fiddles, banjos, guitars, mandolins. Sometimes we even have a double bass player. And we just play fiddle tunes for a few hours. We also do it once a month at Lazarus Brewing on Airport Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to that, I also like to play music of Britain and Ireland and other places. I also play the English System Concertina, so that sort of rounds out with my banjo playing.
I would say it does. And Bernard, you live a little bit out of town
So
compared
true.
to
Yes.
the rest of us, so getting to these jams isn't probably so convenient.
Well, it's true. Although, so I live in Blanco County. I'm a piano rebuilder, and I moved my shop and my residence, but it takes about an hour's drive to get to Central Austin. Mm-hmm. And but actually, the town of Wimberley's had a wonderful jam once a week, and in fact, that was, if you may know of a local musician, Sarah Jarose, and I met Sarah when she was 11 years old, mm-hmm. and that was her early days of that, and she founded a band that I was one of the members of, and when she was 11, 12, 13, like that, and she went on to have a great career.
Well, I
in
would say
music.
she surely did.
And she
Yes.
was probably the most popular person that came when we started having things. That Sarah, we would sometimes, we'd have this big crowd of people, and then as soon as Sarah got done playing her set, well, the people would kind of drift away. So anyway, it's not all in Austin, but let's just say Central Texas. There's some of this going
Yeah.
on. So.
Well, we are located in Central Texas, and I should remind everybody that in October we have our big event, which is called the Austin String Band Festival. Bernard plays a vital role. He handles the sound for our mini sets, and hopefully, well, will you be in town this year in October?
Not this year.
Not this year.
I think not. I might be.
Uh-huh. And David, we might see you out there, I hope?
It's a good possibility, I think, this year.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to bring out about our early days was that when we had that first fiddlers convention, as you could call it, we didn't really see much happening after that. We sort of were focused on putting together that event on a shoestring, and the response was so terrific, even though we had to go to a rain location because it rained the night before and made the outdoor location unusable. The response was so significant that we decided that we could do things on an ongoing basis. So we developed the idea of an open mic for traditional music, which proved to be very popular for many years, and also having the big events twice a year, and that went on for several more years. So that kind of thing gradually evolved into more of an idea of putting on concerts of local and national performers. And I think that's where the direction is more today, although we still have community participation events like the various jam sessions.
And this being our 50th anniversary year, we are endeavoring to hold events each month throughout the year. I'm not sure exactly when this will be online, so I can't tell you precisely what's coming up that month. But the place to find out is our website, aftm.us, where you can find out about all our activities, and hopefully there'll be quite a few this summer.
One of the other things I thought I'd mention just occurred to me. Back in our early days, we decided publishing a newsletter would be a good idea. And we came up with the idea of calling it the Real Times, R-E-E-L, Real Times. Mm-hmm. And we put out a number of copies on paper back then. And amazing to say, it's still going on the online edition. So this is a real accomplishment. I think it's a real accomplishment for two reasons. Number one, traditional music is obviously a niche area of the music industry, and it's focused on people not necessarily having to play because they're professionals. And so the music industry tends to sort of ignore it as much as possible. But there's so much interest at a grassroots level that these kinds of projects can have this kind of longevity. And I'm really, really happy to know that.
Well, I sure am too, that the organization has persisted for 50 years. I'm proud to be involved with it. And as David said, our newsletter is considered an absolute work of art by many who have viewed it. And it is available at the website. You can see all the back issues. It's a quarterly publication with pictures and stories about what's going on. Do check out our website, aftm.us. Well, it's been great talking with you all. I appreciate you inviting us to your home, Elizabeth.
Certainly.
And thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll see you at the Austin String Band Festival in October. So you can start whenever.
Well, all right then. Early on in my time of learning to play old-time fiddle, which is still going on, I guess my very first god of the fiddle was an old, now dead guy, been dead for decades, named Norman Edmonds. And this piece that we do is a combination of two one-part tunes. The first one is called Hawks and Eagles, and the second one is called Lucy Neal. And this is how I heard them on the recording, and I decided just to put them together and make it sound like a two-part tune, even though it's two one-part tunes.
All right.
Hawks and Eagles.